think we should be talking about, we should be condemning violence, also the violence of settlers against Palestinians, which is mostly unreported in American newspapers, but Haaretz every day carries articles on settler violence of burning olive trees, desecrating mosques, beating up Palestinians. So we have to condemn all violence against innocent people. And we also have to look for explanations, which are not apologies in this case. It's not an apology to say what Todd said, that this violence has roots in the occupation and the experience of Palestinians for the last 40 some years. That doesn't justify the violence of these kids, by the way, which do not have much support in the Palestinian community, in contrast to the earlier intifadas, as we were told this morning. So yes, we are hostile to terrorism, state, insurrectionary, revolutionary, in all its forms.
If I were a member of a Jewish congregation, which I'm not, I would want, and it was the sort of congregation that took positions. I would urge them to condemn settler violence. I don't know if any congregations have done that. To me, that seems like a no-brainer. I hope somebody works on it.
Let me ask one last question, and then I'll open up to the floor. Oh, I see despair out there, but here's one question. Michael, at the end of your paradox of liberation, you raised the question of, in fact, you mandate that we all engage in what you call critical engagement. And yet, you say then critical engagement needs a strong political expression. But I don't see anything that tells us how we get from critical engagement to a strong political expression. And I'm wondering whether either of you could address that question.
I'm not sure what the question is. I mean, I'm writing in this book about the unexpected revival of religion and the unexpectedly fierce and politicized version of religion that we are now seeing in the world today. And I compare India, Israel, and Algeria, where there were three secular, leftish, national liberation movements which succeeded in establishing a state, and then this state is challenged 25 years later by a militant religious revival. And three different countries, three different religions, but roughly the same timetable. And one of my arguments, which Alice has just referred to, is that the liberationists think of the Zionist motto, the negation of the exile, which was really the negation of Judaism, because Judaism was the religion of exile, what Theodore Herzl called the 1,000-year-old hereditary disease. The critique of the old religion, which was, after all, the religion of the people that these militants were trying to liberate, the negation was so absolute that it left too little material for a culture. For the culture of the secular revolutionaries was too thin. And so I'm proposing a critical, it has to be critical, engagement with the tradition for Hindus, Muslims, and Jews. And this is an intellectual engagement which we hope will have cultural and political effects. And I give some examples. There's an organization working in North Africa, started in Algeria, called Women Living Under Muslim Laws, which works very hard. It's a coalition of religious and secular Muslim women who look in Muslim texts for arguments for gender equality and find them. That's the reason for the plural laws, women living under Muslim laws. They are denying that there is a single authoritative interpretation of Sharia law delivered by male scholars. And they are offering alternative interpretations which allow room for gender equality. And obviously there are some very smart Jewish women working on reinterpretations of biblical and Talmudic texts. There's some wonderful books that have come out. That is what I mean by critical engagement. It's a long-term project. It doesn't have a political effect soon, but what we hope for, this is also the motive behind the project that I've been involved with, along with Israeli colleagues on the Jewish political tradition. We hope that there will be, as a result of this engagement, a thicker, a more appealing version of left secular culture. The question that underlies the book is, what has gone wrong with the secular reproduction, with the cultural reproduction of the secular left? And every time I talk about it, someone in the audience calls out, you should worry about the physical reproduction of the secular left. Right. And that's one of the big surprises in Israel, obviously. When Ben-Gurion made his deal with the Haredim, he thought they were going to be like the Mennonites in the United States. And that's, he was, and we are very ecstatic about that.
Okay, questions? All the way in the back.
Hi, my name is Mitchell Slitnick. I'm the vice president. I'm not shouting loud enough?
No.
Okay. My name is Mitchell Slitnick. I'm the vice president of the Foundation for Middle East Peace. And so if some of the questions that you were asking about how you work in Washington to affect this change, there are some of us who are doing that work, and there are strategies that particularly American Jews can pursue. I'd be happy to talk with anyone who's interested afterwards. But I have just come back from Israel and the West Bank, and this talk about the question of whether or not Jews have to earn a state, which everyone agrees, no, they don't. But it was raised by, I spoke with a very high-ranking official in the Israeli government, and basically he said, well, we'll give the Palestinians a state, take that with however many grains of salt that you want, but we'll give the Palestinians a state, but we have to know how they're going to behave first. We have to know what that's going to be. So I guess the question is, at what point, now Israel has legitimate security concerns that one can't deny. At the same time, at what point, morally, do we just say, well, you don't have the right to deny another people the state, and that has to be the number one imperative, maybe not the sole imperative, but the number one imperative. Is there some point, just morally, that we get to that?
How many times have we heard there's no one to talk to? How many times could a case be made that there was no one to talk to? Often. When did Abba Eban speak of the Palestinians never missing an opportunity to miss an opportunity? Was that 30, 40, 50 years ago? There are always reasons to be blind. And the blindness I'm speaking to is not a blindness to the imperative of immediate self-preservation. Blindness is the absence of wisdom. And we are now seeing the consequence of decades of absence of wisdom, namely a prime minister of Israel who offers nothing but endless war and is unembarrassed, apparently, about doing it. So, sorry to binge off there. But I do think that many smart people have applied themselves to the logistical questions of how to divide Jerusalem, of how to supply water, how to secure the sacred sites, about how to create barriers that are workable for security but not degrading, and so on. This is not the hardest problem that the world has ever been confronted with. The hardest problem that the world is confronted with in that part of the world today is tunnel vision.
You know, on the subject of what can we do, what can I do, having been involved over decades with Shalom Akshav and supported so many things we were talking about, and maybe Israel, I really believe we have to turn ourselves to the United States, and we have to look very hard at various options for doing something with our government. It's very hard to get into the synagogue, many synagogues have permit conversations about Israel, and for a long time it's very hard to get out of Congress. But it's now possible, as we see from this nuclear arms Iran, that it is possible, even with the Adelsons, and I don't know if possible is from as well, the Adelsons and Netanyahu growing up, and AIPAC growing up and promising to spend $40 million in town hall meetings and television to defeat that deal and coming to speak to Congress. It is possible, in fact, to reach out not only to people like us, but to a lot of other Americans and ultimately to Congress people, including many of the Jewish representatives in the House of Representatives and the Senate, and actually vote against AIPAC, gritting their teeth, but voting against them. And it's interesting to me how little, that there's really not been any conversation about that today, because this was a very serious accomplishment and a first pushback, maybe ever, or certainly in a long time, coming from the population on Congress and supporting Obama. And I think our job, one of our jobs now, is to encourage in every way possible the administration to consider this as a vote of confidence, not as an opportunity to go and give Israel as much money, extra money as possible to make up for that vote, as they seem to be about to do with Netanyahu arriving soon, but in fact to see that there are some allies, that Congress may have his back if he does certain kinds of things. And so I think that's number one of what we really need to do. We have to think about this as a win and as a change and look at what the numbers are. Secondly, on the issue of the Adelsons and the Moskowitzes, there is a movement that succeeded now at the World Zionist Organization to require transparency. How are you spending your money? Where is that money going? Everybody needs to see it. And now the look is at the federations around the country. How are the federations spending their money in Israel? How much of it is probably not a lot? Probably not enough from AIPAC's point of view, but maybe some is going to the Senate. And I think these are the areas where we can work on this at home. I don't think there's a whole lot that we ourselves can do, even with our Israeli and Palestinian friends and allies in ours.
You should be sitting up here.
And my friend Alice didn't.
Yes, I think you're exactly right that the fight over the Iran nuclear deal should be a model for some of our future fights. It was a major defeat for AIPAC, and a very large number of congressmen, women, who have taken money from AIPAC over the years, did not vote with them this time. And one of the reasons was that they were convinced that there was a constituency at home in their own districts that was willing to support an anti-AIPAC vote. And that is the politics we should be pursuing. You all know the story. I've heard it told about Sid Hillman, who went to FDR to urge that FDR support some labor legislation, and FDR said, make me. So we have not succeeded in making congressmen vote our way, but this is an example of how it can be done.
Yeah.
On the Iran deal, one of the extraordinary developments, as disclosed by my colleague Stephen Cohen, who did a survey of American Jewish opinion toward the deal when it was announced on July 14th. Most American Jews supported the deal. A very large majority, more in fact than Americans at large. Now, this suggests that something very, very dangerous is happening to the American Jewish establishment. It's not only, it's building a wall around itself, and it has the money to do that. That is, to build a certain kind of wall. But politicians, I think, even some of our own representatives in this city, who used to be reliable supporters of the doctrine of paranoia, are no longer. Jerry Nadler voted for the deal. That's a very big deal. So it may well be that there's more wiggle room, that there's more fluidity among American Jews than we had, many of us, including myself, had come to think.
Yeah, all the way in the back.
Yes, hi. My name is Shanti Kunzavali, and I'm the president of the Alliance for Middle East Peace. And I just wanted to mention that in Congress, as we speak, there is a bill being passed for the International Fund for Israeli-Palestinian Coexistence. And it's based on the model of the Fund for Ireland, which was very successful. It was initiated in America, but then sort of flown over there and taken out of American political scene. But it was, the seed money came from Congress. There's a lot of discussion right now, but it is in process. And there are many various ways to support this kind of work that will then fund the things that are going on the ground, and community building and business building and economic
Thank you.
on both sides. And I just wanted to mention that, and I'm going to be on the panel on the next time, so if you want to hear more, please come.
Good. Thank you.
That's my advertisement.
One quick addition to this. If people want more information about the bill that was discussed, look on page 3. It's a progressive action guide. It's the first piece of action that we are suggesting people get involved with, and it has a lot more details than that.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Gil Hewitt.
Stand up and
Yeah, I think citing the defeat and the impact on the Iran nuclear deal is a seminal victory. I'm not sure why everyone's dancing around the fact that it was J Street who led that fight. I've been waiting to hear that name mentioned for the last 3 hours. No one has done so. So let me get it all out there. Mr. Nicholson proposed to spend $40 million. J Street at maximum had $3 million to spend, but we had right on our side. We had the logic, we had the compelling arguments, and we won that argument. I think that this sets a model for future kinds of confrontations that are certainly going to take place in Congress. Several people cited that what we need to do is to give politicians the assurance that they can take positions at odds with the establishment and not suffer the consequences. And I think, in answer to the question, what can we do about it? You can all join J Street. JStreet.org. This is the organization that is leading the movement to change U.S. foreign policy, and I encourage everybody to check that out.
Thank you. And now if we could have some questions from... Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I have a question for Professor Walzer. I'm curious about the book that you've written regarding a comparison of the Israeli situation, Algerian and Indian. And I'm wondering if there are any parallels to the magnitude of a problem with refugees that Israel would face. We heard earlier today that Israel has to agree to some sort of symbolic 100,000 refugees with a right to return. And now we've heard everyone who wants to return should be allowed to return, and their descendants. That's kind of what I understood. No?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I didn't even speak.
Then somebody said, I'm not sure where I heard that, but I'm glad that I clarified it here. I'm wondering in terms of some of these other comparative situations, if there is any other precedent of a population that was displaced in the 19th or 20th century that was not absorbed by the majority culture where they then found themselves as Israel faces today, vis-a-vis the Palestinians that are outside of the borders in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, so on, that just weren't absorbed by their host population.
Right, well, one of the reasons for comparing India and Israel is that the states were founded at the same time in 47, 48. They were founded as a result of a partition, and there were refugees, very, very large numbers of Hindus moving south from Pakistan and Muslims moving north, and of course, in this case, the refugees not in either country, where they were not put in camps and kept there for 60 years. Had that happened, the tensions between India and Pakistan